HP, a pioneering employee advocacy and thought leadership platform. With over 15 years of marketing experience, Brad is on a mission to help companies amplify their brand voices through their greatest assets, employees and executives. Get ready to learn actionable strategies for igniting advocacy, amplifying thought leadership, and humanizing your brand in this digital age. I'm Michael Burnsweig of Software Oasis, and with that, Brad, welcome to the Software Spotlight.
Thank you, Michael. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no, very nice to have you here. And I know a lot of our listeners have been following your solution over the years, and it sounds like you've grown the capabilities quite a bit in the most recent releases. So I was hoping you could give us a bit of background on for those that don't know Social HP, and let us know a little bit about yourself and the company.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. I've been in the industry, as you mentioned, for over a decade now. A lot of it with social HP, but some of my past experiences have impacted kind of the way we innovated the company over the last decade. And that's mainly around some of the biggest challenges that exist when you're trying to build and sustain relevancy, consistency, and longevity within employee programs. And that's retention, user retention, right? So you mentioned us coming out with brand new products in the latest release, and most of that is focused on executive thought leadership. And there's a lot of reasons why you want to activate your leader on social, right? They've got high visibility. They own spheres of influence that impact your social selling posture, your talent identification, retention, all that good stuff. Not to mention, 40% of a company's valuation can be impacted by executive presentation, right? Marketing teams that track various KPIs and growth year over year will see with an executive-led strategy, you'll grow 27% faster year over year. So kind of general statistics, but that's what motivated us to move into the executive thought leadership. But most of our history has actually been executing on enabling organizations to dramatically increase the actual user retention within their employee programs.
Got it. So at a high level, can you explain the basics of the solution for a company that may not be familiar with Social HP? How would they use it within their organization? With an existing marketing department and maybe an existing sales team.
Great question. So what we do is we create a content library, which is all of the content that makes your organization special. Product content, promotional content, sales content, open jobs, et cetera, et cetera. We what we call automatically identify and aggregate all of it so that you set it up once, tell us where to find this content, and it takes care of itself over time. So you've got a content library, which is available in form. You then onboard your team. And this is a process by way of simple email invitations and or SSO, depending on the needs and desires of the organization. But now, what we've successfully done is we've found all of your content and taken all of your employees and put them in the same place. And that's the first thing that needs to happen before anything else can happen, right? And the traditional approach, which we fully support, it provides a lot of organic look and feel programs. So we do train organizations and their users so that when you roll out the program, you capture what we call champions. And that's going to be roughly 13% of your employee base. Those are going to be folks that will participate in the program. They understand a little bit about marketing and about social marketing, and they'll usually participate over time. However, that means you're losing 84, 83, 85%, right? Those are the folks that get excited about the shiny new toy. They onboard themselves into the system. They sit through the training. They share a piece of content or two, and then they're gone. They're off to do their job. They're busy. They're on vacation. They forgot their password, on and on. The traditional way to try to increase user retention was to continually train and or motivate through gamification, Starbucks cards and stuff like that, which has less than desirable effect on the actual retention of users. So what we did is we created a way for our technology to make it so that the marketing team can actually sit in the driver's seat. They are the ones that get what we call staged campaigns. So they tell the system what content is going to be shared by what people to what platform at what time. So just as a social selling example, you're going to grab promotional content, you're going to sell it on behalf of your sales team out to LinkedIn over the next 2 weeks, just as an example, right? So you set
Got
up
it.
those kind of variables within the campaign, and then the system knows who's on the sales team and what time frame it needs to share this content out in their behalf, in line with their time zones and in how people share on LinkedIn with some AI, right? What are the engagement times and things like that going to look like on LinkedIn? And so now your employees don't have to go into the system. They don't have to remember a password. They don't have to know what content they're looking for or when it should go. They don't need to worry about any of those variables around the campaign. All they have to do is sit back, let the marketing team do the work for them, and then wait for their little notification to come in that says, "Hey, sales, here's what we have planned for you. Take a look, click to approve," and that's it.
Got
So
it. So it's permission based, and obviously, a company may have 100 employees, they may have 1,000 employees. It
right,
really can magnify the efforts of the messaging and make it much more authentic if it's coming from an individual that somebody at the other end of that communication is familiar with,
exactly.
knows, and trusts.
Yep, absolutely. We call it the "don't believe us, just ask us" syndrome, which a lot of people in the audience these days, when they receive a message from the company, they take it with a grain of salt, right? We're so great, don't believe us, just ask us. But when they're connected to somebody who they know, who they've worked with in the past, who they're friends with, and they see that message for them, it is much more authentic.
Yeah, no, and it sounds like, the way you've set the system up, it really, you know, gets past that big challenge of apathy or the 101 other reasons why some content may not get shared, and
Absolutely.
really puts the control back in the hands of the marketing department to get the messaging out there, on point and on message and consistently.
You're right. Absolutely. And that was our goal, was to allow the marketing teams to control that narrative. I think any marketer will tell you that it takes a lifetime to build a brand. It takes a second to kill one, right? And so if you're opening up the vulnerability of your brand to all of your hundreds or thousands of employees, you got to be willing to take that risk if you're not kind of put some guardrails around it. So not only did we satisfy successfully the biggest challenge that we set out to achieve, which was increase user retention, but we also drove a lot more relevancy within the campaigns, because it's the marketers staging the content versus all the employees who are going to be all over the place in terms of their understanding of the brand and marketing campaigns.
Now, for organizations that may have, let's say, a network of partners or, authorized resellers or, authorized advocate companies that are presenting their solution on behalf of the main producer or manufacturer, do you have any solutions in place for that type of a scenario?
Great question. Yeah, we do. So we'll see it very popularly used within franchises, within vendor and value-added reseller relationships, as well as distributed networks and agency models. So
Okay.
all of them are different. They are similar in a sense that there's what we call the mothership, and that is a hardware producer or software developer that is going to resell their products to a value-added. retailer as one of the examples. Or there's a franchise that has a bunch of different independent franchise owners beneath it. The mothership would be the vendor, the franchise. They have a particular brand they're looking to perpetuate across those networks. They've got particular products that they want to advertise, services they want to advertise. And oftentimes, partners or the franchise owners, the two different examples, don't necessarily know exactly what to do with that content, even if they are delivering that content on a regular basis. Sometimes they are. It's just not top of their list and top of their expertise to be able to do something with it. And what we enable is the opportunity for the marketers at the mothership to stage everything for their partners. Hey guys, you need to worry about this. We're going to share certain content on your behalf at the right time within the right cadences and mix, things like that. And of course, you get to drive all the time, like we talked about, and improve those shares, but you don't need to think about the strategy behind it. And it's all done with various architecture, enabling you as the ownership to identify your various partners, segregate them, and give the appropriate access and controls to those people.
Yeah, and that makes a lot of sense. And I've sat on both ends, so I know, many times a manufacturer may have very specific branding guidelines, and when a retailer on the other end of things or a franchisee may represent multiple brands, multiple, you know, you know, multiple lines, and
Mhm.
understanding the T's and C's and the colors and the what can and can't happen within each different brand is can be challenging. So I think something like this that really connects the two pieces together, you know gets everything in alignment and gets the messaging and the branding out there correctly and at the right time, for launching different promotions or what have you is great. So I
Mhm.
think it makes a lot of sense. Now, obviously, social is in your name, so I'm assuming that the focus is just on the different social networks, or is there a component to other types of marketing that can be pushed out through your platform?
Great question. So our core use case is to post content to social platforms, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram, X, and Jing. But we do have a newsletter that can be used to identify any of the content that has been approved in your system and then send them to anybody that you have an email address with. So if you want to create, send out, and then track and newsletter from the system, you can do that as well.
Great. No, that makes a lot of sense. So can you kind of walk us through a day in the life of maybe one of your customers and what things looked like before they started on the social HP platform versus after?
Absolutely. And let me jump into our newest product, which is executive comms, when I answer that question, because they're potentially the lives that we've impacted the most in terms of saving time and energy in their work.
Got it.
But we'll take a look at the employee advocacy use case as well. And that would be, in either case, you're starting with content, whether you're sourcing this from content that already exists in the organization or you're building it from scratch, which oftentimes happens. Either way, you have to build that content or identify that content. And then what you're doing before social media oftentimes is you're sending this to a bunch of employees via email, you're slacking it, or I use Slack, but it could be Teams or obviously any of the internal chat systems, and saying, hey, folks, here's this great content we generated. It makes you and us look great. Please copy the link, share it out to your LinkedIn's or whatever platform they're recommending. And that gets very little attention. You're going to get very little traction in that type of process.
Sure.
In comes employee advocacy platform, not just for HP. And now all of a sudden, you have a single place to guide these users to. It's that content library. And then the users can just be trained to go to the system and click the share button on the content. They don't need to worry about seeing the email, understanding, cutting, that type of thing. But still, it's a significant amount of time and energy introduced into your average employee's day that they don't necessarily understand where, how it's important, or when they should be doing it. So the fact that Social takes it that one step further and allows the marketing team to actually stage all of the posts for the employees is what makes us different as a provider. In these days, again, I mentioned we've been doing this for 5 or 6 years now, in particular ability to stage content. And I think it's more important now than ever. If you look at what AI has done, is probably the most prevalent example right now. Everyone expects things to be done for them. Everyone expects things to be done quickly. Our attention spans are getting shorter, on and on, right? So the fact that we do this for employees and then just give them the opportunity to hit the go button is of massive value to our clients, and it saves a ton of time.
Makes sense. And obviously, it goes from the top down in terms of executives and their companies and the messaging. So being able to have thought leadership as a component of your solution is very important.
Yeah, what we see, there's a kind of two names that we see that are commonly referred to as either executive first or leader led. And so if you talk to organizations that are trying to put their high visibility executives at the forefront of their marketing strategy, they're usually calling it one of those two names. But regardless, what happens today, particularly for highly regulated healthcare, finance, pharmaceuticals, or if you're just simply a public company, which comes with a whole host of regulatory concerns. But even if that's not the case, when you have a CEO, a CRO, CMO, COO that is saying something out on LinkedIn, it's perceived as if the company is taking that stance, which is very different than your average employee, right? If I go off and I say something on LinkedIn, somebody goes, hey, that's what Brett thinks, right? But if Tim Cook for Apple or Elon Musk for Tesla or fill in the blank for any of these notable executives, when they say something, not only do people say, "Oh yeah, that's the word of the organization," so does the law, right? It's not a surprise that Tesla gets sued by SEC when Elon Musk says various things on X, right? And so that's a bell curve example, but it goes to show that if you are a true executive at various organizations, you will be looked at as if you're speaking for the organization. And so the fact that that's the reality means that most organizations have what it potentially be their most valuable player in the social media game sitting on the sidelines because there's too much fear about what could happen and what could go wrong if there's not a process to ensure that it's done correctly. So you have a couple of executives that are trying to do it themselves. You have a couple of teams of people that are trying to do it executives, and then log into their LinkedIn natively with their password and post it as if they're the executives. But in any case, it's usually the fact that the executives don't have an intention to do it, and so there's people that are trying to figure out a way to get it done. There's not a good tool for that today, and we kept hearing that again and again from some of our larger clients, and that was the impetus for us building and delivering we call executive comms, which gives a much more robust workflow for various stakeholders, compliance, legal, investor relations, all that stuff to be able to approve and collaborate on content before it can be posted by an executive.
Sure. And what is important in terms of getting buy-in from executives for this type of a solution?
So most executives that talk to them will say it's very important for them to be a thought leader. They know the value that they can provide to the organization. And then if you ask them if they do it, oh no, I don't do it. I'm too busy. I haven't figured it out. There's no good tool for it. My team, posts for me once a year, something like that, right? So it's interesting And we've talked to a lot of executives, clients of ours, prospects, but also just, as we do our research in the industry, it's becoming more and more understood that executives should be doing this. They're just not actually doing it right now, right? And a couple of statistics, I'm not sure if I mentioned already, upwards of 40% of a company's valuation is driven by the reputation of executives. I think that was a Reader in research study a year or so ago. 27% additional marketing exposure with a leader-led social strategy. There's a lot of metrics and statistics to back up getting readers on LinkedIn particularly, but how you do it, how much time it takes, and whether or not you are satisfying all the various stakeholders within an organization is very hard to do, and that's what we facilitate.
Yeah, so there are some very direct and measurable ROI calculations that could be made by getting involved in a solution like this. No, that's really interesting to hear. And I guess at a level like, if you were to look at your solution and where it sits in the market space compared to other alternatives that the companies listening to the podcast might be looking into, can you bullet point one or two things that you think really make the social HP solution stand out?
Number one, single throat insurance, so to speak. So if you want to do corporate SQL, which is managing, scheduling, and then reporting on what we call your corporate assets, your corporate LinkedIn pages, Facebook business page, Instagram business pages, you can do all of that in social HP, just like you would with Sprinkler or a Suite or a Sprout. If you want to do employee advocacy, which is getting all of your employees to share content natively out to their profiles, you can do that in social HP. Same tools, same sign-in, same workflow, same reporting. If you're with Sprout or Sprinkler or Suite, you need to have the second platform, which comes with its own name, sign-in, and contract, and all that good stuff. And then you add a use case, which could be executed within the social HP platform for executive thought leadership. You now hit everything social, corporate, employee, and executive within the same platform. So that's
Got it. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And for companies that are looking to get started with a solution like this, what does the process look like from when they may first reach out to you until they're up and running, and then after they're up and running, what type of effort is involved in getting the entire organization aboard? And
great question.
yeah,
So we, of course, sit down and have a conversation with the client to ensure that it's a great fit, that they understand what the outcomes are going to look like, and what the time and attention that is required to run a successful program looks like based on our experience and our best practices. But once everybody says, hey, we got it, the technology is great, it's going to provide the outcomes that we're looking for and enable us to drive the activity that we want in social. From that point forward, we can move very quickly. The onboarding and training for our average client can happen within literally 5 hours. Now, those hours are normally broken out across about 2 weeks. So we would first identify the people that we want to onboard into the system. And again, that can be done by way of email invitations and or single sign-on forms that the client may use. And then there's usually a couple of different phase trainings. So we would do what we call train the trainers, and we would train anyone who's going to be an admin, usually the marketing and comms folks on the system, and ensure that they know all of the ins and outs and bells and whistles of the system. That usually marinates for a couple of days, and then they say, hey, we feel like we got it. Let's go ahead and start to invite other users into their training sessions. And normally we would have a second training session, which is going to focus on the champions. And these are the people that we expect might actually take some of their own actions on a regular basis in the platform. And we'll train them a little bit around what the organization is looking for in terms of frequency and content, even focusing on the roles of these people and things like that. And then there'd be another training session, usually again a couple of days after that one, which would be what we call the all hands. And everybody who's going to be part of the program, we're going to get them into a run. We're going to introduce the platform, the reason we exist, why the client chose to work with us, what they need to do in terms of enabling their own settings as an individual, and then saying, hey, this can be as easy as you walking away and not doing anything. But if you'd like to participate, here's some other things that you can do within the platform to add value.
Great. No, that makes a lot of sense. Can you give an example of, a client that's using the solution and how it's working for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So we have a number of different clients that support various use cases. The most popular use cases are social selling, which makes a lot of sense for particularly B2B sales organizations.
Sure.
We have a lot of HR commitments that are executing talent acquisition and talent retention use cases through the platform. And then, of course, we have clients that are focused mainly on the executive thought leadership and how to position their executives as a value for the organization, but also perpetuating their own personal brand. So an organization that actually kind of runs the gamut in terms of doing everything. I'm trying to think of a good example who does not just employee advocacy, which is our traditional use case, but also the newest use case, which is executive comms, and corporate, which is McDermott Will Emery is an example. They're a very large nationwide law firm, and they're they're taking that single throat to choke approach with us, which is instead of having a platform for advocacy for corporate and for thought leadership, they're doing it all on social HP.
No, that's great. And I think, obviously it has so many possibilities in terms of the different levels at which the solution can be used. It's a very wide open format that can be used a lot across a lot of industries. Um, are there some like best practices that you see for companies that seem to be doing the best with the platform versus those that might be needing some help along the way?
Absolutely. So there are two things, and they come down to frequency and styles of content, kind of the topics of content that you're going to share. So number one, you want to avoid what we call the adjacency issue. And the adjacency issue just speaks to the challenge that if Michael and Brad are both salespeople at the same organization, and then you say there's 500 Michaels and Brads at a large company, if we all share the exact same piece of content, particularly within a tight time window, we're probably going to be connected to a lot of the same people, and they're going to see the same piece of content from all of us and go, that looks funny. It looks a little fishy, right? And we call that the adjacency issue. And so what you got to do is you want to make sure that you create a number of different what we call wrappers, which is just what you're going to see if you're scrolling up LinkedIn. It's the main image and message that you kind of engage with as a LinkedIn user. Now, the payload is not going to change. The actual deliverable is not going to change the link or the article. But the wrapper, the image, the message can be changed. And so what we do is we give clients the opportunity to create multiple messages and images. So say you have 10 messages and 10 images. Well, if you do that math, you have 100 different wrappers that you can wrap around that same payload. And now, even if you share that on 500 people in a single day, if you spread that out in the right way, our system does for you using AI, you're going to avoid that adjacency issue, even though you are sharing a dense content campaign.
Makes a lot of sense. No, it makes a lot of sense. Now, are there, so that's really good in terms of, avoiding some of the challenges. Are there any recent releases that you've had in the solution roadmap that you're particularly proud of that you wanted to share with our listeners?
Yeah, absolutely. They're focused on the executive comms use case. So what we built it for initially was to give those clients that were asking for a more robust approval process that includes different stakeholders who can collaborate and have to approve content before it's posted and published on behalf of an executive. However, once we got in there to develop that product, which is live, we saw that there's other things that we can do. And there's two of them that I'll touch on in terms of features, and then a couple things that I'll touch on in terms of reporting visibility. And number one is the ability to monitor and manage comments. So, of course, if you post something on behalf of your CEO and a bunch of people are commenting on it, what you want to do is grab your CEO and say, hey, Michael, jump in there. You got a bunch of comments and respond to them. Well, what are the odds that Michael's got the time and energy and ability to do that anytime soon? And so the fact that your marketing comms team can be notified of these comments and then respond to them as if Michael, with, again, the right approvals, you can actually perpetuate the conversation and respond to those comments on behalf of your executives. So the monitor,
that makes a lot of sense.
That's key to a lot of the use cases in our executive comms client base right now. And the other one is what we call boosting or supercharging. And you can do this for either a corporate post or an executive post. And so if you think about some of the most important messages that organizations are putting out there, they will oftentimes lead with either an executive or the corporate page or both. And then the next thing they do is say, hey, team, we got a great post out there. Please go like it. And again, emailing, slacking the links, they click on the link and go like the content. Well, again, about 10% if you're lucky, right? With the supercharging feature, what you can do is you can stage that engagement on behalf of your employees. So you grab everyone on your platform, or if it's a fundraising announcement, you grab your finance team and your accounting team, just as an example. But you can grab those people and you can stage for all of those people to like the content. And then the system goes, hey, cool, got you. We want these 500 people to like Michael's post. I'm going to go check. And if these people are on pilot, I can just like it for them. If they're on approvals required, if they're approval, then I'll apply their engagement to the post. And again, that drives the actual engagement of those 100 people. I'll use that number because I have the statistics dealing with 100. You get 86% of those people actually like it versus 10.
And what are the sizes of companies that make the most sense for using the platform? Do you see a range of company sizes, or?
We do. By and large, the answer to that is the bigger the organization, the more content they're going to have, the more employees they're going to have, the more need they're going to have for a streamlined process. But that is a very generic rule. We have some highly regulated organizations in the pharmaceutical industry that are 12 employees, and they have very, very high needs and high needs for the platform, more so because of various governance that they have. But it is definitely a spectrum from all the way to 12 employees up to thousands.
Okay, and that brings me to compliance. So it sounds like obviously security and compliance is very. If I heard correctly, you said that Social HP has been around as a company for nearly a decade at this point.
Correct.
Wow, you guys are old dogs in the industry.
Yeah, we are.
Right? It's like a decade, many decades in other industries. But as far as compliance and security and all of that, can you talk to that in terms of the different features baked in?
Yeah, absolutely. So first of all, security and compliance on our software, we're SOC 2 Type 2 and all these things that you look for in terms of vendor approvals, right? We're working a lot of large public companies within the healthcare space, the financial space, pharmaceutical space, even in countries like Germany, Switzerland, all the large pharmaceutical companies that are there. We've jumped through all the hoops that are necessary. So just to speak a little bit to our own governance and certifications, we've got a lot of things buttoned up, which is always nice for people to know. And when it comes to our clients' ability to address security and compliance and regulatory needs within our system, those features mainly lie within executive comms portion of the platform. So the opportunity for content to be approved within our system is done only by an admin on the employee advocacy side. But most of the time, the content that's coming into the system has already been approved in some way, shape, or form, and we're just sorting it from wherever approved content lives. But there are approvals that can be enforced within the platform on the advocacy side. On the executive side, that's when you're going to be able to take a piece of content that was built completely from scratch. No one's seen it before, and you want to get it out on behalf of your CEO. That's when you can put in the workflow that the compliance officer, a security person, a regulatory officer, anybody and everybody that's on that list needs to approve it uniquely before it can ever be released into the wild, so to speak. And then if it's a matter of automating that system, or say that process, or having those people do it, we can integrate with like a Proofpoint, Smart, which is just a tool that a lot of highly regulated organizations use to enforce, like FINRA, as an example, for financial organizations. So it can be offline in those platforms. It will check against all the various profiles you have enabled your Proofpoint as an example, and ensure that it's not violating anything for you as well.
Great. No, that helps out. And two more questions I know people are dying to hear. One, as far as your roadmap, are there any exciting things that you're working on that you'd like to share with our audience?
Absolutely. So we have two really exciting features on the roadmap. One is what we call the stack rank, and it is the opportunity to identify any 10 people. Of course, there's ideas which we know clients are going to use this and some kind of best practices. But the most obvious is the competitive stack rank. It's where you would take your CEO and then stack them against the other 9 competitive CEOs. So the leaders of the companies that are your competitors, right? That's a very helpful one. But there are clients that are looking to use this to track policymakers, their NGOs, and they're highly dependent on various government policies. And so they want to track the LinkedIn feeds of these policymakers to see if they're giving any kind of foreshadowing decisions that might be made, right? But the stack rank allows you to track any 10 people internally or externally on LinkedIn and see what it is that they're posting, so you can gain insight into their frequency, their topics, their type of content, video versus PDF versus image, so on. And then, of course, it will give you what we call insights into your inbox. So we'll extract insights from that
makes
data,
a lot of sense.
we'll send it to you so you've got actionable steps that you can take.
Great. And
That's
then,
one.
and the last question I wanted to ask you, as far as anyone that's listening to the podcast that wants to get up and running with the solution, or even just explore a little further, are there different ways to get started? Is each package customized for the actual application, or do you have some standard, routes that people can take to get up and running?
Yeah, we do have some standard packages. So our starter package, as an example, is 15 employee seats and a single executive seat. Those are a la carte, technically speaking, because there are a lot of clients that will have an advocacy use case and or an executive use case, and not necessarily both, right? So you can choose the packages that we have, but in essence, all you need to know is the number of employees you want on the platform, the number of executives you need to support, and then the number of corporate assets. Example, corporate LinkedIn pages that you might want on the platform, and then out comes your package.
Okay. And I'm sure anyone, we'll leave a link in the show notes, but people can just reach out and get a demo of the solution to see if it's a good fit.
You got it. socialhp.com. There's a sign up demo link there in a number of different places on the website. And I am Brad at socialhp.com. I'm always happy to receive those types of emails myself.
Okay, great. Well, you may not be so happy that you gave out your email address on the podcast, but we'll see. But any which way, I really appreciate you taking the time out to join us on the Software Spotlight today. And
Pleasure.
That was super. Coming up on our next episode, for those raising capital, where it's a make or break situation for your startup, our next guest is Michael Doyle. He's the founder of Brand Iron and capraisedeck.com, a SaaS solution that helps startups develop compelling cap raise decks. With decades of branding and fundraising experience, Michael will share insider tips for creating pitch decks that engage investors and propel growth. So that's coming up on our next episode. Also, for anyone who's joining us from other channels, be sure to visit softwareoasis.com to sign up for our weekly newsletter or our weekly webinars on the latest SaaS solutions for your SMB. And coming up tomorrow, we have our webinar on elevating the experience for new employees within your company and for students. So be sure to join us tomorrow.